Okay, full teardown of the gun. First thing you're going to want to do is take your eye covers off, because those screws are small and you don't want to lose them. Hard to find. Take those off, put those someplace safe. You're going to want to take your eye covers off, same as we did before. The top two come all the way off, just like you're doing the battery removal. And then loosen this one a turn or so. On your other side, take all three of these off. And you're going to want to take your battery out. It falls out, you can pull on the wires, do it a couple of times, you can break them. They're nice and thick wires, so just go ahead and grab those two wires, slide that off. Come in here, same thing with your solenoid. Nice thick wire, you can grab the wires, pull that right off the board, won't be a problem. The wires that are small are your eye wires, so those we want to be careful of. Go ahead and pull your bolt out. Now, one of the only reasons you're going to want to take these two halves apart is if your valve is leaking. Doesn't happen often, but if it does, come in here, pull your cap off for your rammer. And then you're going to want to slide your rammer out the back. Sometimes the cap will come off without the rammer, and you're going to want to reach in here with an Allen and just slide the whole body out. All right, now we've got three screws that hold the body together, front, middle, and back. To get your front screw, you're going to want to use the same one here, slide it all the way in, and it won't nick it up as much. Slide that off. Okay. Now, there's a screw right in there. Come in here, loosen that up, and twist her off. Now, on this one, we purposely left this loose so you could see there's a little stainless steel reinforcement in there. I'm going to show you that when we put it back in. That won't always come off, shouldn't come off, but if it does, we'll show you that. Now, this one, just loosen it a half a turn with the short end, and then it'll spin off, and it stays inside, so just spin it until it's loose. And come to the back, doesn't really matter what order you do this, of course, and take this one off. All right, now you've got the three off, you can just slide the gun apart. All right, now you can slide it all the way out by taking the eye wires off, or you can leave it together because you don't need that much space. Here is your screw for your valve. Now, come in here, give that a good crank, pull that right off. Now, this is a 3/8" wooden dowel. You use the handle of a spoon from the kitchen. But we're not including one of these because you should not need to take this valve out. But if you do, just come in here. It slides real easily. Now, notice that it stopped. If you get this kicked sideways, there's a narrowing in the body, and you're pushing against the body. So just narrow it again. Now it slides easily again. Get it centered. Slides quite easily right out of the body. So, there is your valve. If you have an O-ring leak, after you've reinserted it, you probably have cut this O-ring right there. Just look for a nick all the way around. That's an 11.5 by 1 metric O-ring. Okay? Now, that's not the problem, you've been shooting for a while and you've developed a leak, maybe you got dirt or something in the air, got in here in your valve. Take this off. It can be kind of tough. If it's real tough, you notice this is smaller, so you could put some pliers on there and pull that right off. If you gave it a little nick, it wouldn't hurt the way the gun functions. Pull that off. Now this O-ring you should never need to do anything with. It is an 8x2 metric. You lube it up. You should never need to touch that O-ring. Don't replace that. You've got your spring, and then you've got your valve body. There's a bumper in there. You've used the same O-ring that's on the cap, 8x2. And then you can just slide that valve right out of the body. Okay? Now, that's an 11, also an 11. You can use two Bunas, you can use two polys. The poly has a little bit more work to do, so we put a poly in the front. This just rides, so we used a Buna. Just look at those all the way around and see if there's any dirt on there. See if there's any cut on there. If there's cut, you can replace them. If there's not cut, don't replace them. Leave them there. Okay, clean them off. Get a little of your alien slime, Dow, monkey poo, whatever you've got. Put a little dab on there. That's plenty. That's going to last a long time. Many cases. This clip will never need to come off. There's a little O-ring in there to seal to help with efficiency. Don't fool with it. Put that back in. Slide it in. Put your bumper in. If you forget your bumper, you're going to have a gun that isn't as efficient. Put your spring back in. Your fingers are already a little greasy. Go ahead and grease that up because that seals. That's what does the balancing. And get that on there and crank that all the way down tight. And that O-ring will hold it in place and you'll have no problems. So, once again, inspect the O-rings. Got a little grease on your finger. That's enough to get those in. And we just reverse the process. Now, if it's the solenoid, there's just two screws here. Take those two screws off. You don't need a big screwdriver. Don't drive these down hard. It's an aluminum body. It can take plenty of pressure to seal this, but it just doesn't take that much. You replace the solenoid by just removing those two screws. And once again, you're already loosened the body, so you can just pull it out, push another one back in. Make sure you've got your O-ring here, grease it up. Line it up. Up. Kind of snug. A little more snug. And then snug that one up. All it needs. Okay? Now, we're going to take our valve body. It goes out of the back, it goes in from the back. This is the pin that the rammer pushes on. So it has to face towards the rammer. If you ever put your valve back in, the gun cycles and no air will come out, probably turn this around, and now your rammer is just hitting this cap, and it's not going forward as far. You'll notice the bolt just doesn't travel very far. Okay, spin it around and get it in here. Now, it doesn't take a lot of pressure. It's very smooth. It fits really nice. Just get it in there and slide it in. Look down your hole there. you'll see the spindle in the cap. Then you'll see the O-ring, the first little O-ring, and then there's a little where that goes past there. It shouldn't hang up at all. And then you'll see the flat there. If the flat's not exactly centered, go ahead and reach in there with an Allen and center that flat. Nice and centered in there. Take your flat there, goes into that flat, and you screw that down. Now, this is not centering on the valve. It's actually stop threading in the body. The threads don't go all the way through. So just snug that down until it's flat. The body rests on this. This cannot unwind and let your valve move out. So don't crank down on that. Just snug it down, and you're good. Okay, now, get your eye wire here. Now, there's a bump on there. Okay, you can feel the bump on the one side. So go ahead, put your bump in there, get it in place, get your eye cover, screw it still on there, get it loose. Because what you're going to want to do, well, this is the other side, so you can get it fairly tight. Now on the other side, what you're going to want to do is you'll feel the bump, get the bump in there, okay, get your eye cover on, make sure you're still in there. When I pulled, I moved the eye cover, so I knew it wasn't on there. Slide it on there, snug. Get your screw, and just get it kind of snug down there. After it's snug, you're going to want to run your wires in front of your solenoid. See how it's offset? This side doesn't have much space, and this side has a lot of space. So run your two wires under and in front of and under there, and then snug it down. Okay, now you've got a 3x1 O-ring, two of them here and here. All right, feed your wires back in. Line it up and check for your other one. You've got a small, it's a 2x1 right here. Make sure that these two are still here, this one is still here, and your big one's still in place. If you've got some grease in your fingers, you can still lube those up a little bit. All right. And then take your trigger. Now this slides together really easily. I start the front, I pull my wires into the body, making sure that my eye wires are both on this side of the solenoid. Okay? Just slide it in, the red and the black and the white and black, pull them in, and then that's going to slide together very easily. Just boom. Now if it hangs up at all, it means your wires are not down. Good, you're good. That should just click down, just like that. Okay? No forcing. Doesn't need it. All right. Take your back one here. Snug it down. Your middle one stays in the body. Just get it kind of halfway loose. Now, that front one should not come out. If it does, get yourself just a little bit of Loctite and put a dab in a couple of the corners here. Okay, just a little bit in a couple of corners, don't even need it all the way around. And there's a low groove, a little valley. Okay, see the little valley there? The valley obviously goes in the valley here. So just drop that in. I didn't even put it in. Get your screw, drop that through there. Check to make sure your valley is low. And then just drop it in. Give it a turn. Now I usually say don't even use the long end of the Allens, because if you crank on the short end of the Allens, that's plenty of pressure. Same here, just a little bit of pressure on the short end. Do not take the long end and crank on that. Same here. A little bit of pressure on the short end is more than enough. All right. Now, we're going to hook up our battery and our solenoid. Sometimes it helps to get a little Allen wrench and on these so they're hidden a little bit. To press them down easier. Line up, they're offset, you probably know that, but they're offset, only goes in one way. Get it started. Use your Allen, press it down, seat it. Give it a half turn there to get rid of some of that extra wire. Pull this back. I like to twist it once or twice. Eye wires, twist them once, twice. Get them set down. Plenty of space in there for them. Cover them up. And then, again, push your grips forward a little bit. And you can see that hole very easily. Not difficult. Push that screw down and through to get it started. Starts very easily. Now, put a little torque on that, line up that hole. That'll keep your grips nice and tight there. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is get it past the rubber. Line it up. Now the other one's already lined up. As I say, sometimes getting it past the rubber is the hardest part. Now, it's going to have more torque on this side because that one's already lined up. So, put it in, get it past the rubber, line it up. Pushing on the trigger. Line it up. Past the rubber, screw it down. Now, ram goes in, never a problem with the ram, just slide it in. Be careful, put it in so you don't want to nick it up. My favorite is forgetting the front cap. Put the front cap on, it makes a loud noise if you don't. Go. Take the bolt. Make sure your rammer's back. Push this in till it's even. Slap it down. You've just taken the marker apart and fully assembled it.